As insurgents attacked inside the Iraqi green zone, the U.S. presidential candidates pushed their war rhetoric into the red zone. CBS's John Roberts reports they traded charges about the new report showing that despite what was said as the war started, Saddam Hussein had no weapons of mass destruction before the war.
His original case for war wounded yet again, President Bush insisted today he was still right to take out Saddam.
He chose defiance, and he chose war, and the world is better off with Saddam Hussein sitting in a prison cell.
The president was already fighting uphill going into tomorrow's debate. Now he faces the added burden of both the new weapons report and Paul Bremer's claim earlier this week that there weren't enough troops in Iraq.
This week has provided definitive evidence as to why George Bush should not be reelected President of the United States.
Today's headlines were a gift John Kerry could only wish for. But hold on, the White House said, you're missing the real story.
The headlines all say, no weapons of mass destruction stockpile in Iraq. Well, we already knew that. The intriguing finding that Dulfer's come up with is the extent of corruption in the UN Oil for Food program.
The corruption was never mentioned as a reason for war. The president's new argument, Saddam was actively using that program to undermine sanctions so he could restart his pursuit of weapons. As protesters dogged President Bush's Wisconsin rally today, Kerry scoffed at what he called another convoluted attempt to justify the war.
My fellow Americans, you don't make up or find reasons to go to war after the fact. My fellow Americans, you don't make up or find reasons to go to war after the fact. My fellow Americans, you don't make up or find reasons to go to war after the fact.
But President Bush fired back today. With his record on Iraq, Kerry can hardly talk about changing positions.
Today my opponent tries to say I made up reasons to go to war. Just who's the one trying to mislead the American people? Today my opponent tries to say I made up reasons to go to war. Just who's the one trying to mislead the American people? Just who's the one trying to mislead the American people?
With his tactical shift today, President Bush is trying to remind voters that Saddam was a bad guy and that by illuminating Saddam's level of deceit, he can beat back any argument from John Kerry that he did the wrong thing in Iraq. Dan?
The major candidates in Illinois' U.S. Senate race made a rare joint appearance this afternoon. It wasn't quite a debate. Democrat Barack Obama and Republican Alan Keyes made back-to-back speeches downtown. CBS 2's political editor Mike Flannery joins us now. And Mike, the two men put forth their very different visions.
Well, this is how different, Antonio. They debated the assumptions underlying the questions that the Metropolitan Planning Council put to them. Going first, Obama answered in straightforward fashion. But Keyes told the group it was asking the wrong questions.
Pray for your patience a little bit, because I think we'll have to, before I address questions, we'll have to look at the premises of the questions a little bit.
The setting was the annual luncheon fundraiser of the Metropolitan Planning Council. The largest crowd in the group's history showed up to hear the U.S. Senate candidates answer questions about transportation, education, housing, and economic development to create jobs. Alan Keyes scolded the group for allegedly focusing on government-directed solutions. The conservative Republican argued that many problems with schools, housing, and jobs had been caused by government and its alleged lack of a moral compass.
And then, of course, we want to show up with government money at the front door, having lit a fire in the back door, telling everybody we'll use the funds to put it out.
I believe in good government and am not somebody who thinks that federal government should be wasting money. But what I do know is that when our state sends a buck to Washington, it makes sense for us to get a buck back.
Barack Obama's approach was in sharp contrast to that of Keyes. Obama argued that Illinois has too often been shortchanged, including by the school funding promises of President Bush.
Despite the high standards that were established by No Child Left Behind, the money was left behind for No Child Left Behind. And that is not a good thing.
Now, there is some new polling data out today, a lot of it actually, and the Daily Southtown reported a survey finding that many Illinoisans simply don't like Alan Keyes, that's one of the things that's driving 34% of Republican voters to say they're actually going to vote for Obama. To CBS 2, A CBS 2 News Radio 780 survey of the U.S. Senate race, though, finds Obama very, very comfortably ahead with the support of 68% of voters likely to cast ballots on November 2nd. Keyes has 23%. Other candidates have 7%. If the final results next month look anything like this, Diane and Antonio, Obama's lopsided victory is going to put him in the Illinois electoral record books.
Advising schools across the nation to be aware of anyone who might be casing their buildings. The department says this heads up is based on lessons learned from the Russian school massacre. There is no specific terror threat against any U.S. school. Polls consistently show that in the wake of 9/11 and the Russian attack, American women are understandably more anxious about the safety of their children. And CBS News correspondent Sandra Hughes reports the presidential candidates are concentrating on trying to get the votes of these concerned mothers.
In 1996, it was the soccer moms who some pollsters predicted could swing the election. This time around, it's so-called security moms. Soccer moms like Debbie Ricketts who worry about terrorism.
I don't let my kids go anyplace. We're talking about going on vacation. Where can we go? How do we get through the airport? Where is a safe place?
Each candidate addressed Debbie's fears in the first debate.
I wake up every day thinking about how best to protect America. That's my job.
I defended this country as a young man in war, and I will defend it as President of the United States. I defended this country as a young man in war, and I will defend it as President of the United States. I defended this country as a young man in war, and I will defend it as President of the United States.
That didn't change Debbie's mind.
I will vote for George Bush.
But polls showed the debate helped Senator Kerry regain support among women on security issues. Those who had a lot of confidence in Kerry protecting the U.S. from terrorism jumped from 27% to 39%. Still, Democrats downplay the importance of the so-called security moms, saying many moms have other priorities. In fact, a recent poll found only a quarter of married women with children rated the war on terrorism as their main concern.
The economy is my #1 issue.
Realizing tomorrow's debate on the economy and other domestic issues could sway some undecided female voters, both campaigns have strategies to define what women don't want.
The Bush campaign wants to portray John Kerry as a first husband, somebody who's a little shifty. Kerry campaign is trying to portray President Bush as reckless.
Portraying themselves as family-friendly, both could be seen with their wives on the couch across from TV straight-talking therapist Dr. Phil. As President Bush tries to win more women over, and Senator Kerry continues to try to win them back. Sandra Hughes, CBS News, Northridge, California.
Still to come on the CBS Evening News, it's Martha Stewart's new home for a while, and she'll be checking in tomorrow. We'll give you a chance to check it out next.